happening. I don't know how to stop it. Thank you. Sorry about my very casual attire. My husband and I have been on the road for 15 days, and tough choices need to be made out of my suitcase today. So,
that's acceptable.
Yes, exactly. I know. I thought it was hot in Medicine Hat. It was just about 40 degrees here today. Holy cow! And then we're driving here, and we see there's a fire in the other way there. And I said to my assistant, I'm like, I feel like we should be driving in the other direction. But I guess you guys deal with that a lot. I can't believe what's happening here. It is so dry, and it's on fire, and my heart goes out to all of you that are, I mean, this has got to be affecting a lot of people.
Ottawa's fault.
Yeah. Thank you to Gary and everyone that has put this together. It just so happened that I had some days free up, so we were able to add some dates. So what you're seeing came together in the span of about 2 weeks. So if we could give a big hand to Gary and his wife. And it's been an absolute honor for me to be here to meet some of my heroes, namely Mr. Ted Kuntz. And Dr. Hoff, who I finally got to meet today. He was one of the many doctors that I followed throughout all of this stuff that obviously has faced censorship, smearing, whatever, you name it. I'm sure just like us, he's probably been called every ist and phobe that you can come up with, because that's what they do. When you disagree with them and they have no argument, they just start hurling names at you, because it's all they got. But that's okay. I've developed a very thick skin. Of course, Sean, it has just been an honor to be here with both of these Seans, and Turi just gives me so much hope for the future of this country. And I'm not sure if she's still here, but I met another lovely little lady tonight that's here, and her name is Tatum, and she's another young freedom fighter. Is she still here? Tatum, are you still here? Would you stand up for just 1 second? I don't want to put you on the spot. This little lady has been going to freedom rallies regularly, and she made me some very beautiful bracelets that you guys are so important for this fight, because you are the future. And so I'm so grateful that you're here. And obviously to the rest of you, none of this would have been possible without you. When we started organizing the convoy, I mean, of course I had kind of thoughts in my head of what it was going to look like, and I honestly thought we'd maybe raise $20,000, and 5 or 6 truckers would go to Ottawa and stand there with their signs and then get in their trucks and drive back home. And boy, in the category of did not see that coming, I think this is number 1. But it showed that we were ready for a change, and that we needed to have a change. We were desperate for a change. And that became apparent within the first 24 hours when I had set the total for our GoFundMe at $100,000, which I already thought was crazy. And Canadians blew past that in about 24 hours. And then our Facebook page that I'd set up had so much traffic, I needed to also start another committee to look after that and create a different page for all the people that were contacting me to donate food, fuel, deaf fluid, coffee, tires, oil, tampons, chapstick, anything. Or they were opening their homes up. So I had to start another page totally to get all the support people organized. It was. They call me an organizer, which I was, and but the truth of the matter is, every one of you was an organizer. Everyone that came to the highway, stood on an overpass, donated $5. Nobody came to Ottawa without bringing something, donating something, contributing in some way, offering to help in some way, adopting a trucker. I mean, every one of us was. All of us were. We had, the volunteers were amazing. We had chefs volunteering in mess tents, with donated gear, donated ovens, portable ovens. We had doctors, nurses, paramedics, former law enforcement. We had, it was amazing. Everybody contributed. And I think that's what scared them the most. Even more so than the $10 million that y'all raised twice. I honestly don't think that's ever happened in history. I know that our GoFundMe campaign, the last time I checked, was the 8th fastest growing fundraiser in the history of GoFundMe. So, but even more than that, because I said to Keith Wilson one day, this isn't about the money. Because we got there without that money, we stayed without that money, and we sure as hell got home without that money. What scared them the most was we discarded the labels that they've put on us for the last, well, like Sean says, this has been going on a lot longer than a lot of us think. But we shed all those labels, and it didn't matter what color your skin was, it didn't matter where you lived, it didn't matter what God you worshipped, it didn't matter who you loved, and it didn't matter how much money you make. Those all fell away, and we were just Canadians. Proud Canadians again, right? Woo-hoo! And I don't know about you, but I was ready to feel proud about something. I just became so frustrated, you know. I told Chris on the way out. This is right around the time, remember, when Justin Trudeau, even though he's had 3 shots, well, at that time did, and he was exposed to COVID, and he had to go hide. And then as we got closer to Ottawa, they had to skirt him out for his safety because we were coming to rape and pillage everyone. He was skirted out of Ottawa for his safety, and we did find out that he was skiing in their Laurentians with his friends, so that tells you how concerned he is. I lost my train of thought there. This man, this so-called leader, I said this to Chris, fundamentally speaking, in my opinion, a leader has 2 jobs. Unite your people and protect their rights and freedoms. And I said, right now we're doing his job. And the job of the official opposition. Because I waited. I've been a conservative voter for a long time. And I waited, 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 and then I waited some more. And that didn't really pan out. But I was quite happy to see Aaron O'Toole get kicked to the curb. So, I mean, that's ironic. We basically became the official opposition because there was no opposition. If you had an opposing voice, you were discredited, you were smeared, you were called names. Myself, I've been called a racist, I've been called a terrorist, I've been called misogynistic, which is quite funny. One of my charges is intimidation, and I just still think it's so funny because I'm not intimidating. But you know what? I will wear that as a badge of honor. And every second that I was in jail, because that tells me that we scared the pants off of some people. And they should be scared. They should be scared because the jig is up. Some of the unintended consequences that came as a result of the convoy were the things that were exposed. And I think a lot of us knew, well, we've known for a long time there's been a lot of corruption, but I don't know if that was really an eye-opener, and they just put it right out there. The media, obviously, that's a big one, you know. What was happening on the ground and what was being reported were 2 completely, totally different things. I would encourage all of you to, if you haven't seen it yet, Rodney Palmer's NCI testimony, where he discusses the CBC and the propaganda campaign, because that's what that was. And I don't know about you guys, but I recognized it right away, because all of a sudden, like Sean was saying, it was COVID. My rock station in my hometown became the 24/7 COVID information station. We want you scared all the time, right? And it was all over the TVs and bus stops and billboards and posters and it was. I just couldn't understand why they were trying to scare everybody so much. And I remember saying to my husband, if they're going to report every single COVID death every day, which is terrible. I mean, I don't wish death upon anyone. then I want to know how many people died of cancer that day. I want to know how many people died in drunk driving accidents that day, heart attacks, but we eradicated the flu. So remember, we cured the flu for only 2 years, but apparently it's back now. Because science, right?
Just ask Bonnie.
That's right. And you guys, wow, I thought Quebec had it tough. I thought Quebec was one of the worst provinces as far as with their restrictions. Well, and at the time they were. I mean, BC's always been pretty bad, but you know, the curfews, the vax tax they wanted to do, single parent or parents from broken homes weren't allowed to see their kids. They weren't vaccinated. I mean, the Rideau Sussex thing is a big deal, but no wonder they were pissed off, right? Like, I get it. Totally understandable, justifiably angry. And then to see what's happening here, I can't even believe it. Like, it's like she's doubling down. And on what? She's doubling down on nonsense. The jig is up, people, right? And when are they going to figure that out? They have to, like, it's got to stop. And the other thing that baffled me is when I saw all this advertising, right? This stuff costs money. That's called a marketing campaign. And so if they would have taken all that money that they put into scaring the living daylights out of you and put it into the hospitals that were apparently overrun and whatever, right? Problem solved. Problem solved. How many billions of dollars went into scaring the shit out of people? It's disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. And the restrictions, you know, I just saw so many people suffering and hurting. I complied. I put a mask on. I didn't get groceries if I didn't. I lived in a small town in Manitoba. Manitoba was militant with the restrictions. Very militant. But I would always drop a few F-bombs, put it on, just to myself. Just to myself. And then as I was walking out the door, I'd be ripping that thing off. Because it's not natural. How long did we go without seeing people smile? Remember when we weren't allowed to sing? Right? Or hug? It was insanity. And I just reached my BS limit. Was like, when? When is somebody going to do something? When is somebody going to stand up? I thought the doctors would stand up. And some of them did. And now they're paying the price, as Dr. Hoff knows. I thought the nurses would stand up. Some did, and they lost their jobs. I thought the police would step up. I mean, goodness, you take an oath to protect us, for God's sake. No, and they didn't stand up. And the government, well, I mean, I guess I sort of held out hope that somebody would stand up, and nobody did. And if you look at who these people are, these are all the people that we've been taught to look up to and call heroes, right? Yes. And then they came for the truckers. After 2 years of being hailed as heroes, after 2 years of being compared to soldiers going off to war, like Vimy Ridge, all of a sudden, they were zeros. And at that time, I'm sure you all know, we were already having supply chain issues. Could you imagine if these truckers that feed their families, and along the border, of course, just like here, I'm sure there's truckers that make that trip every day, even twice a day, 3 times a day maybe. And how are they going to feed their families if they had to quarantine for 2 weeks every time they crossed their highway? How do you think that was going to work out? You know? And my part was simple. I just called Chris Barber. I got his number. I saw his TikTok video. I'm sure all of you have by now. And I said, first of all, I found out he was from the same area of Saskatchewan that I was from, which was kind of cool. And what struck me immediately about Chris was, his sense of humor. That guy is hilarious. He's the best troll I've ever met. And he's just these natural leadership abilities and this compassion that he has. And to this day, he's like that, you know. There's lots of people that, for lack of a better word, have betrayed us. And, you know, he's the first person to pick up the call and try and solve things. And I really admire him for that. So we were like, I felt like we started off as partners, and now we're going back to Ottawa to finish this as partners too. And I think it's quite poetic that we both have to drive back across Canada and do this all over again. Just a little bit differently this time though. So I find a little bit of, you know, it's kind of poetic, I think, because we're definitely going to go kick some ass. I mean, I think the government, they like fear. They love fear. They love fear. And I think they thought they saw this tiny little woman that was going to see the cops coming, and I was going to run away and be scared and cry and beg, no. And they picked on the wrong granny. They picked on the wrong granny. Because much like Sean, I do not tolerate bullies. And I never have. I remember, even at the convoy, I got in between two rather large men that were having a disagreement. But I mean, that's what I do. That's who I am. I don't want to see that. I just inserted myself in the middle of these two guys and, you know, worked it out. So that's what we do. I grew up in a Canada where I can't tell you how many times strangers were on our couch because my parents had picked up hitchhikers or somebody's car had broke down. I can't tell you how much money that my parents gave to strangers who needed it when we didn't have it. I mean, I remember living on the farm eating fried bologna and potatoes because we just had no money. This is in the 80s, of course. Sadly, I think we're heading there again. You know, that's how I was raised. My parents were always helping other people, talking to other people, and that's the Canada that I grew up in. And somewhere along the lines, I mean, Canada's full of beautiful, giving people like that, and somewhere along the lines, and this is what struck me at the POEC that I was at in the fall, is that somewhere, somehow, our government and our law enforcement agencies have come to see Canadians as their enemy, as a threat. And that became very apparent to me when I sat in the Emergencies Act inquiry, which I prefer to think of as the hurt feelings and extreme paranoia inquiry, because that's all I heard. They asked the interim police chief about Section 2 of the CSIS Act. Was there violence according to Section 2 of the CSIS Act? And he just started a long ramble, and he got asked that question again. Was this a violation of, or violence by the definition of Section 2 of the CSIS Act? And his answer, the interim police chief of the Ottawa City Police, was, well, no, there wasn't actual violence. It just felt like violence. Pat Morris is a name that everybody in this room should know, and you're not going to because the mainstream media is not going to report on it. Pat Morris is a superintendent for the Ontario Provincial Police and head of their intelligence department. And he testified, and I would implore you to go and watch it or watch it again too, that the lack of violence in Ottawa was shocking. His words. He also said what he was hearing coming from the media and our politicians did not match with the intelligence that they were gathering. So those are the people that we're dealing with. Did you know that the Public Safety Office issued an internal memo the night we arrived, telling their people that we were entering federal buildings and causing destruction and damage and wreaking havoc? So bold-faced lie. Bold-faced lie. But let's see, we were also accused of trying to burn down a building, desecrating the Terry Fox statue, which I questioned. He had a Canadian flag hanging off of him, and he had a sign in his hand that said "Mandate Freedom." Nobody calls it desecrating when they put a rainbow flag on him. But you put a Canadian flag on him and cry freedom, and you're desecrating his statue. This is where we're at now. But my all-time favorite was "The Russians are coming." Everyone be afraid of the Russians. They're infiltrating. I remember when that came over my phone and I looked at Chris Barber and I'm like, do I even know any Russians? Like, where do they get this from? It just blows me away. But, you know, I can laugh about it, but it's really not that funny because they actually think that you guys are stupid enough to fall for this. That's what they think of you. I'm insulted. I'm insulted. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I have a little bit of college education. I'm nothing. I am a nobody. And even I know what's going on. I don't know probably as much as Dr. Hoff or as much as Mr. Coons. I'm not in the military. By the way, thank you for your service. I'm literally just 5 feet tall, a grandma from Alberta, and if I know something's wrong, you know, that's bad. It's bad, like Sean said, it's bad. But I have to thank you. And that's why I love coming to these events. Everyone says, how do you stay so energetic? And, you know, it's been 15 long days now, and it means so much to me to come here and talk to you and say thank you. Because without you, you are what made it a success. You are what made this happen. Without you and your stories, we would have just been some trucks driving across Canada. But you guys showed up. And, you know, that was the beautiful thing about it. Everyone that couldn't go to Ottawa just wanted to feel like they were a part of it. And so they would go to the highway, or they'd go to the overpass, or they would just donate $5 even, just to feel like they were a part of the convoy. And they were. And they were. That was a Canadian movement. Totally Canadian. Done in the most Canadian way. Like, you know, who drives across Canada in the largest convoy of all time in January? Heroes do. Heroes do. Those men and women got in their trucks, not knowing when they were going to see home again. I said to Chris on the way, we don't know what we're walking into. I said, we could be arrested. We could be shot. I don't know. Like, who are we dealing with? I don't think these guys are exceptionally bright. So we didn't know, you know. But they got in there and they did it anyway. And it struck me a couple of weeks ago as we were driving, I wonder how many tears were shed on that highway by some pretty big, burly, tough men. Because they were all, you know, I've said in my videos, I haven't cried for a decade. Not that I don't have a heart, I just didn't cry. And now, well, you saw me. Every single video that I ever did, I was a hot mess. But it's you guys. I have a story. I have a story. I have a book. But my story is no more important than your story. Not even a little bit. And it's your stories. Those are the reasons why we went. That's why we did what we did. Because we were all sick of seeing people hurt. No one's going to tell me that I cannot have my parents in my own house. That ain't happening. And my parents did come to my house, and I just actually really hoped that the RCMP would show up and ask me what was going on. I am a little bit of a rebel, in case you didn't notice. I do like to push buttons sometimes. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't want to keep on yakking. How am I doing, Sean? Good? Good? Okay. So thank you. Because while you told us that we were giving you hope, the truth of the matter is that it was you that was giving us hope too. The stories that we heard, and I still hear to this day, every single day someone told me, at least 3 people told me they were planning to kill themselves. Every day. When I was arrested, I had on my freedom pants, and my freedom pants got called that because they were a pair of cargo pants. And I loaded them up the last week because I was sure something was coming. And I know that when you are arrested, not that I've been arrested before, but I've watched some cop shows, they have to write down everything that's on your possession. They have to inventory everything. So I had a copy of the Bible in this pocket. I had a braid of sweetgrass in this pocket. In this pocket, I had a handmade card from a little girl saying, "Thank you for giving us back our future." And I had a cameo of the Virgin Mary, and I had a heart-shaped rose quartz, because that represents love. In my other pocket, I had the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and a letter from a man who was now living in his car with his family, because he'd been devastated by COVID. And I thought, you guys are going to have to write all of this down. And then go home and look yourself in the face in the mirror, or look at your kids. Oh, and I had a little pin. There was the cutest, this 4-year-old boy. I went out to one of the encampments one night, and there was this basket, and it was just these little felt things. And he just cut them and put safety pins in them, and they were fringe. They were fringes. It was so cute. And I never got that back. I was really sad. They searched me outside and put all that stuff in a bag, and most of it was ruined because it was wet when it went in there. It was snowing. And I never did get that pin back. So maybe, no, I can't say that or I'll go to jail. So I have 2 things I want to close with here. When I was in jail last summer, I spent 30 days in jail last summer. A friend of mine sent me a letter and a poem called Invictus by William Ernest Henley. And wow, it blew me away. The situation that I was in, but also the situation that my country was in. And when I read that poem, I didn't think just about me being in jail, which is what it's about, basically. But I thought about my country. Because the Canada, Invictus means unconquerable. And a lot of us tried to do the right thing. And a lot of us did comply because we wanted to be good people, because we're passive and we're polite. The most passive and polite country on the planet. But we have a line.
Yep.
And we are unconquerable. And that's what happened at that convoy. The donations, the support, the people that came, you can't tell me we're a fringe minority. We raised $10 million twice. Fringe minorities don't do that. But in the most beautiful Canadian way, what did Canadians do? They took unacceptable fringe minority and they put it on t-shirts and bumper stickers. They got posters and flags, and we own that shit. That's what I love it. Same thing with the jerry cans. Remember that? They were going to charge anyone bringing in jerry cans with mischief, and what did Canadians do? We had a jerry can fashion show on the stage in Ottawa. That's Canadian. That's what we do. So I just want to read to you a copy of this poem. I have it mostly memorized, but I don't want to mess it up.
Can you run for office?
Well, the thing about politics is that it's full of politicians. I'm not a politician because I don't lie. But actually, seriously, in all seriousness, a lot of people have asked me about that. I won't rule it out in my future at some point, but I think it would hobble me too much. Like, I think it would restrict me too much. I think I'm better served outside of politics. Maybe trying to affect some change. I mean, Sean said it earlier today. You know, I like Pierre Poilievre. I like that he can make the Liberals look so dumb, so easy. But the thing is that they're all working for someone, and it ain't you and me. It ain't you and me. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. So I'll just start here. I had some Bible verses that I read the Bible when I was in jail, and a lot of the stuff that resonated with me I wrote down. and I put them on a piece of paper under my bunk. I was on a bottom bunk, and I taped them to the underside of the bunk above me so that I could read them anytime I laid my head down. And so here are some of the scriptures that I wrote. I wrote on the folder some quotes that would give me strength. One of them was, "Courage is not the absence of fear or despair, but the strength to conquer them." And Bible passages from Mark 3:24 to 27. "And if a kingdom be divided, that kingdom cannot stand." And to me, that meant Canada and all the division that we've been facing for the last, well, easily decade, that's been thrown at us by our government. And if we're divided, we will not stand. It's not cannot. We will not stand. We have to unite. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And to me, that meant not just myself, my own house, but the movement, the freedom movement. We can't be divided. And, you know, that happens sometimes, you know. I honestly will tell you, the reason people, I think, don't do this stuff isn't because they're afraid of the government or the law. It's because the people that you think are your family that turn on you so viciously. And, yeah. So, no man can enter a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. And the last one I had was from Ecclesiastes 10:16 that says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child and thy princes eat in the morning." And I had written out the entire poem of Invictus by William Ernest Henley. The title Invictus means unconquerable. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. They can put me in jail, they can find me guilty, but they will never take me, they can never own this. My higher power and myself own this. And speaking of a higher power, I don't think there's anyone that has been involved in this convoy, whether they are believers or not believers, that will deny that something was guiding us and something was protecting us.
The King of Kings.
Yes. And there were signs. Like if we needed something done, somebody would just show up to do it. If we needed somebody that had a special skill set for a specific job, they would just show up. Happen all the time. There are no coincidences. Excuse me. So I was at the POEC inquiry last fall. I had to go sit through that every single day because I thought, you guys called me a racist, you guys called me a terrorist, and you thought I shouldn't be tolerated, and now you're going to have to see my face in this room every day. And so that's what I did. And up until the inquiry, that was really my first opportunity to speak publicly about what had happened. And I was a little nervous, only because it was going to be watched by so many people all over the world. I mean, I still can't wrap my head around this, you know, all over the world. And we were upstairs doing some trial prep in Keith and Tom's room with the lawyers, and I ran downstairs to Brendan Miller's room because I used to sneak to his deck and smoke cigarettes. And I went down there, And I found this card on the floor. And I thought, oh wow, as I'm always looking for signs. And I get them. Seek and you shall find. And I came across this card on the floor and I thought, oh wow. And it says, Jesus loves you. And so I took a picture of this. And I thought, okay, if this card is still here when I come back for my next cigarette, I know this was left here for me. It's meant for me. And so I went back, and it was still there on the floor. So I picked it up, and then I turned it over. And it says, Jesus said, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends.
Amen. Praise him.
So I knew I was going to be okay. And then I went in there and kicked some ass there too. And the great thing about that was, sorry, I'm going to stop talking, I promise. The great thing about that was, Brenda Lucky gets there and she goes up with her briefcase full of stuff. And then David Lametti comes, and he's got a briefcase full of stuff, and all the police chiefs got a briefcase full of stuff. Christopher Freeland gets up with a binder full of stuff, and I got to walk up there with nothing. And Keith Wilson said it very nicely, the truth doesn't require a binder. So this is our last stop on our tour. We've had the warmest welcome in BC. I didn't realize there was this many warriors here, but I am blown away. I'm blown away by you. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for having us. Thank you for your support. I'm going to go home tomorrow. I'm going to spend the weekend with my daughter and my grandkids. And then Tuesday morning, we ride off to do it all over again. But like I said, I know a lot of people have come up to me and said it's a shame that this happened and I'm sorry for what happened to you. But I don't want you to be sorry, because this is the way it had to happen. If it wouldn't have happened this way, maybe many of you would still be asleep. Yeah. And I'm okay with this, you guys. I can handle it. I can camp. And I just want you to know, I'm going to be okay.
We got your back.
We've got truth and God on our side. How can we lose?
We're praying for you.
So we're going to march back there and we're going to do this all over again. Maybe not on the same scale, but if I'm going down, honey, I'm going down swinging. So, thank you, thank you, thank you,